sister just checking in with my podcast, Everything's Relative, where we are navigating the new world of new identities created and discovered with modern DNA testing. Welcome! How are you? What color tier is your state or county in? Here in Los Angeles, we're hovering in the red, which means places like museums and restaurants are opening back up, and our kids are kind of probably heading back to school. There was a town hall meeting last night for our little local elementary school, so I was on the Zoom meeting for my Dallas, age 5, along with a lot of other parents. It was boring and confusing and pretty imperfect, but I certainly don't blame them. The principal's doing the best he can with the information he's been given, but it was more, it was just like more of the same of what those of us here in the USA have been dealing with during the past year. A lot of shaky leadership and mixed messages and misunderstandings and plenty of reminders to wash your hands. So that's what's going on in my world, in my town, in my neighborhood. And one thing it's got me thinking about as the world is opening up, and if it continues to do so, is if I am going to go on an adventure to find out more about my real bio dad, the man who was really my father. COVID really put a halt to almost all exploration in that department for me. But I'm considering what it would look like to meet my siblings. There's 6 or 7 of them. And I probably have more relatives, like aunts and uncles. There's lots to think about, folks. That's where I'm at in my journey. Where are you in your journey? Probably, no matter what, whether you're brand new or you've been working on this for a little while, you have probably noticed how little information there is out there in the world about this situation. And if you haven't done this, and maybe you're not an NPE, you're just listening for fun or someone suggested it to you, I would challenge you to spend some time on Google and just try to narrow this down. This phenomenon of DNA discoveries, there isn't an official name, although different factors of the community are pushing for a few different ones, like NPE or MPE. It's hard to describe what it is. So search words, just use some search words like, wrong DNA results, different DNA results, heritage, my dad is not my dad, see how specific you can get. And you probably will get different results every time, which is what so much about this podcast is because I and so many other people in the community are just really trying to change this lack of information. We're trying to get the information out there, make the world know and understand the prevalence of this, of these NPE occurrences, and also to destigmatize it and to normalize it and to get people talking and to get people to help people make decisions if they are faced with truth or not truth. So anyway, I'm just saying that I am really understand the frustration of what it's like to be in this totally shocked place and trying to get info and struggling. So Gina Daniel was also in that place. She was already a licensed social worker. When she had her NPE experience, it changed her whole world. So she went ahead and she had begun a doctorate program. And so she just changed her whole study, and she developed a study and a dissertation focused on unexpected paternity through direct-to-consumer DNA tests. And she... I'm thrilled to have her as my guest today. And so I want to talk about her personal journey, but also talk about the findings of her study and the way that this is an important part of the kind of people we need right now as a pioneer getting our stories on the record. So I was thrilled when she said yes. I'm thrilled that her paper is out there, that information is now available. anybody wanting to look up more about her findings about our community. And so I'll just let you listen. Yeah. I'll meet you on the other side. Thanks for listening. This is Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis. I'm Eve Sturgis. I don't even know where to start for some reason. Sometimes when I know people, it's more uncomfortable because I like have to slip. I don't know. I don't really like slip into a different persona, but I'm here with Gina Daniel. We met. We have been in touch as pen pals for like 2 years.
Yeah.
Which is kind of amazing to think about. But but then we met at and then she was at the retreat in on the East Coast with me this past fall. So we got to meet in person and talk, and we have been talking about recording something for all this time, and now it's finally here. The day has arrived, and one thing that is super exciting for me and what is unique about you is that you have an NPE story, right? But then which we'll get to, but then it's like what you did with it, what you did with that information. That's really interesting. And so you have become a pioneer in academia about the NPE experience, and for those of you and us in the community of the NPE or DNA discovery world, it's a very big deal because there's like no information out there. So for someone to start collecting information, coming up with conclusions and publishing it and putting it out there, it's a really big deal. So why don't you tell me, can you talk about your NPE experience?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
absolutely. So yeah, because I think all the players in my world would not listen to this. I don't think they even would know what the term NPE is to look this up. And I honestly do not believe that my 2 dads would even know what a podcast is. Maybe one does, but so I was born in 1969, just for reference sake. I think a lot of us NPEs kind of sometimes like that idea of where in the timeline people kind of come from. That seems to be kind of the general gist of the 60s to the early 80s. Seems to be a lot of us come from that time frame. And I was born to young parents. My mother was a college student. My dad was at home, and she came home and said, "Oh my goodness, I'm pregnant." And he was like, "Well, we have to get married." And that was kind of what happened in those days. They got married. And soon after, she just wasn't happy and, wasn't really ready to have a baby. And she took off. She was done. My dad was devastated, but he was determined to raise me, and he did. And he eventually got custody of me and raised me. And she just went on and kind of lived her life. She kind of tried to come back a few times, but it just wasn't kind of that settled down, raise your child, live the wife life was not for her. So my dad and I lived a few hours away from all of our family, and he just raised me as a hardworking dad. And it's just he and I for a really long time. He met my stepmother eventually, and whatever, that was our life. But I was that person. I am that person who always felt like I didn't fit with him. We did not connect. Very verbal, very emotional, want to talk all the time. He wants none of that. So I always felt like I wanted to be with my mom because I must be just like her. And she just didn't want to be with me. Not in a cruel way. It just wasn't for her. Mothering just wasn't for her. So fast forward, when I am in college, she died unexpectly. I mean, I think for me, it felt like overnight, literally, but she died from alcoholism. I was 20, and I just got a phone call. Your mother died yesterday. And I was like, what happened?
Yeah, I've heard your story, and that surprised me just now.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of wild to just be like, oh, well, that's a strange piece to the story. I mean, there's a whole lot of other things, right? But we're not going to get into all of that. But so she was, it was over. It's just kind of like, there's no resolution to anything. I always wondered why she wouldn't raise me, why she wouldn't want to be with me, and then you're that kid that wants to like chase her love and attention. You want to like get good grades, and you want to be the good kid, and you just, she would see me occasionally, and she was so funny and she was so pretty. And I just wanted that so much. And she just wasn't having it. Not in a cruel way. It just wasn't for her. So I didn't get along with my stepmother very well. And my dad was just my dad. He was hardworking. I got a lot from him, but we just didn't connect. Went on my way of just living my life and wanted to be a mother desperately. And eventually took a lot of fertility, and that world was fun. But eventually I became a mother in my 30s, and I have 2 daughters, which is amazing. And kind of got to live that mothering through my kids, which in a very healthy way. I'm a clinical social worker, so I'm really good with like kind of like seeing like what's healthy, what's not healthy. I've done my work. I've been through my therapy, but yeah, I think I've been able to kind of replace some of that by being a mother that I didn't get. It's been really wonderful, really, really wonderful. I feel fully fulfilled as far as all of those pieces that were kind of not there as a kid. And I'm sad for my mom because she died when she was 40. And when I passed 40, that was a really difficult time for me. It's a really tough time for a lot of people when they pass the age of their parents sometimes. Really tough time for me because my daughter was 4, my youngest was 4 at the time. And I thought, how do you leave your baby? Like it's terrible to like be done with your life at that point.
So many questions.
So I just, yeah, so sad. But anyway, so fast forward to 49. I had asked my family to get me an ancestry test. I wanted to see how German I was, right? There's that whole thing. My maiden name was German. My dad never talked about anything. He didn't seem to have any history of our family. His father had died when he was young, and he just doesn't talk. So I just couldn't get anything from anyone. And I didn't click with that side of the family. We had always lived far away. And so I was like, oh, let me just find out on my own. I have children. Let's just figure this out. So sent the test away, and eventually it took me time to do it. Got the test back and looked at it and like, we're not even German. Well, this is silly. So I took it over to my dad and I'm like, we're not even German. He was like, okay. He didn't even care. So which I thought was ridiculous. So, I just put it down and I'm like, okay, so we're kind of English. Well, whatever. Didn't even think twice. And at the time I had been a year into getting my doctorate. So I was just taking classes, and it was late the day after Father's Day, 2018.
Of course.
And of course, right. And 11:30, I was working on like wrapping up an assignment. My husband's asleep beside me, and up pops, the email, the ding, and you have a match. And I'm like, okay, another 4th cousin from New Zealand. Like right, I care, totally. Like that kind of thing. Like
3rd to 5th cousin, very distant. Right.
Yeah. We have like 32 CMs. Like, okay, whatever. And it came up and it said, 50% match. And I thought, okay, it's like late at night. Like I can't be seeing that right. And it said connection has to be father or son. And I went, listen, like I went through some fertility. I know exactly every single thing that's happened to me. Like I don't have any sons. And I just went, you have got to be kidding me. I think there was a curse word in there, but I was like, what? Like what just happened? So I didn't wake up my husband. I just went to sleep. I laid there for a long time, thought about it, got up in the morning, called a science teacher friend. And I just said, this is not right. Right. And he was like, no. That whole thing, DNA doesn't lie. Like, he was probably the first one to say it to me. And I've heard it 800,000 times since. Anyway, from there, I just kind of got on it, did all the like stuff people do. And I like really studied all the trees very quickly before anybody removed stuff, because that happened. Got on, just pulled everything, screenshotted everything. I don't know why I knew about any of that, because I hadn't done any of this work at the time. I just kept
about
pulling
to
stuff.
Yeah, I was just about to ask.
I had no
how
idea.
Did you know to do that? That's
It was a gut thing. It was just a gut thing. Like I just, and I think what I was thinking was, I just need to have it all so I can organize, so I can look at it. I don't think it was because I was afraid someone would take it down. Ultimately, later I realized that was, a good idea. But I think it was more so I could kind of piece together names and years and relationships.
Like lay it
I
all
don't
out.
think it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that was where I was really coming from. And then later when it was gone, I went, ooh, that was a good idea. By July 5th, I was on the phone with my biological father. So what had happened was my mother was at college a few hours away from her home. The best that I can piece together was she was just kind of, living a young adult life back in the time and had met people on weekends and had fun. And I think she had met my biological father on a couple of weekends. I think they kind of like had a standing weekend date. He was older and I think he could buy alcohol and I think they had fun and whatever, right? And stuff happened.
She's
and
pretty,
I think
she's
at that
funny,
time,
she's having a good time.
Exactly. He's funny.
She's not serious about like life.
No.
They didn't call it friends with benefits in 1969, but what, sure.
Exactly. And I don't want my life on display at 19. Like it's all of those things. So I think she just got scared and came home. And I think she shared with my grandmother, her mother. And I think they said, well, you have to tell the boyfriend, my dad, that you're pregnant. And my dad didn't even do the math. The math doesn't line up, but he didn't. He just believed her and they got married. And that was the end of the whole story.
Yeah.
And, when you reflect on your life and you remember certain things, there were goofy things where my grandmother, my dad's name is Denny. And my grandmother would say, Denny was such a good father to you. Now that's a goofy thing to say.
Right.
Like, would you say that to your kids? Would you use your husband's first name to say that to your kids? No. Kaylin is such a good daddy to you. That's goofy. Nobody says that. So things like that would happen in my life. And I never thought about it like that. So it was just kind of funny how it comes back in time. But so anyway, I was on the phone with him and he is fantastic. He had no idea. She just disappeared. And that's exactly the story I knew. She just left college abruptly. And I didn't tell him that. He just kind of offered that. And so we were really putting the pieces together the best we could ourselves. So he was just as blindsided as I was. And so that's pretty much my NPE story.
Yeah.
I did meet him a few months later. He wanted to meet pretty quickly. I did not. I needed a minute. It was a lot to wrap my head around.
Sure.
I did have a ton of anger. I thought I had really worked through all my mom's stuff, and I felt that she had come back from the beyond and messes my life one more time.
Yeah, it's like she, totally. I was just about to say that. Like she came, you thought you had worked through everything, but she had more secrets and surprises for you.
Yeah, and I just really thought, lady, listen, like you didn't already raise me. I struggled so much as a kid with you, and yet one more time. But I think she did the best she could with what she had, and I've really come around to understand that, and I'm over all of that. But I really was very, very furious 4 months with a dead person, which is really not, fruitful. But I needed to be that way. Yeah. So I met him, and I mean, it's awkward and at first, and it is what it is. But I think we've made some great strides in what will be this year will be 3 years. He doesn't live near, so that makes it difficult. COVID makes things difficult, but he is all in, as much as you can when you find out you have a third daughter. And I have 2 half siblings who are not feeling this. Still not feeling this.
They're not into it. Okay.
No, I'm hopeful that'll come in some time, but not yet. Their mother's still living. There was no overlap, nothing funky about that. He was just a single guy doing his thing. He hadn't even met their mother yet. So there's nothing weird with that situation. They're just, I think, loyal to her. And I think it upends. He's not married to her anymore. And it upends. The oldest is no longer the oldest in some weird way, if that's how she wants to look at it. But I don't know what it's about.
Right.
No one asked for this. It just happened.
Yeah. It's always curious to know and there's no way to know unless they can articulate it, but like what it is that you represent to them, what it's something, it's a loss of innocence about their understanding of their dad, or it's the loss of being the oldest, and that was so important to her, who knows, and then why, or the mom. Yeah. Gosh, it just is like a whole other file of questions.
Yeah.
And I think really get to know.
Yeah. And so that summer really was, the summer that things blew up in a lot of ways. And for me, it turned out to be quite, the shocking blessing. I always say it's a shocking blessing for me. It worked out nicely. It doesn't for everyone. I totally have learned that. So I decided to switch my topic of my dissertation into the NPE experience. I was passionate for it at that point because I didn't see anything about it in the research. I just couldn't find anything. And as a social worker, a clinical social worker, I wanted to know what was out there for us. What could I learn about this? And I couldn't find anything. I couldn't find support. I couldn't find anything. It is so new. This is an unintended consequence of these tests. And it is a consequence of them, you know. The numbers are staggering in some ways. And these are only the people that find one another through Facebook. You know, there's so many people that wouldn't even know. The numbers of misattributed paternity are big. They're small percentage-wise, but they're big when it happens to you and you find a network of people. So I just think that there just needs to be more information put out there so people are warned. Anyway, so I switched all of my whole topic stuff around, and my university is quite excited about the topic. They have been since the beginning of time. So I am studying, have been studying, understanding what happens to the family of origin relationships, what happens to how you understand your family of origin now as an adult, what happens to your personal identity, and how do we seek support through this process. And so it's been interesting because when I started this, even where I have come in the past 3 years is vastly different than when I started. And so I'm seeing that too, because I think I've done about 51 interviews with NPEs over the course of this time. And I am done with this dissertation in a couple of weeks, which is amazing. But for sure. But it's been really interesting because there's tons of areas where there's more research that can be done. But one of them that I really have discovered through a lot of the people I've interviewed is with the siblings who didn't expect to learn this either on the other side. And so I might have to dive into that next round of something. I'm really
I mean, that's
now.
Like subtopic that, I can see that as being a sort of omitted. I actually did my master's thesis on siblings, on a sibling connection, because it is part of the family system that is so often taken for granted or ignored. We're always focused on parent-child, and it leaves out this whole other faction.
Yeah, well, because and you know, parents will pass on. They're generally a generation older than us, but you're left with your siblings as peers. And what happens in those relationships, not always, because sometimes one of the parents is significantly older and they have different family that are significantly older and siblings older, but oftentimes you're in the same range of age and what happens with that. But so it's been very fascinating, and I'm super excited to add my research. There's definitely a lot of people doing some research in this area now. So we'll be getting a bunch of research. I mean, there's a lot of anecdotal stuff coming out, lots of books, lots of personal memoirs. Super exciting to see as much as we can get out there just for the awareness, just for the support. I am working on a support guide, a workbook kind of thing. I just don't have as much time as I wish I did, but I'm working on it. To get moving on something just to provide for therapists. I think there's a whole element of what the mental health community could benefit from in understanding, because that was something I really got out of the NPs I interviewed, was just the mental health community and the lack of support and the language that was provided to them that really didn't feel too good.
No, it's still amazing how many stories are still coming out of therapists saying the wrong
You're still
thing.
You.
It's about who loved you. It's so cool. So currently you're working as a social worker, you're working on this workbook, and you're working on your dissertation, finishing it up.
I'm at the presentation point. Dissertation's been done. It's just I have to present it and defend it, I guess.
So so knowing all that, what do you feel like is gosh, I have so many questions, but what do you feel like you have? I guess we'll start with the one I always ask everybody. Do you feel like you have advice for people that are just entering their NPE experience? If you could have known something back then?
I mean, I think I would say sit still and feel what you're feeling. Acknowledge it. Just sit still. You don't have to act. I think I think we act fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's an element of go ahead and screenshot all of the ancestry trees. Like, go ahead, because someone might remove that before they do. But otherwise, just sit still for a second. Just sit still. It'll be okay in some time. And I think what I've seen with some of the people I interviewed a year and a half ago, I've seen them also calm down significantly from when it started to where it goes. We have to rewrite a narrative, often in middle age. That's a strange space to be. We've shared our narrative with our children. Like, we've moved to a place where this is our story and we've passed it on, and it's wrong. And we have to start over. That's a strange space, but breathe through and we'll figure it out. The secrets and the lies, the shame, that's not ours. And we feel it deeply, but we will be okay. We have to feel through that and just, put that onus where it belongs, because it's not with us generally, but there are a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of hurt words that get said. There's a lot of mental health issues that are in families sometimes that get really stirred up in these moments, and just take a step back sometimes. I think that's probably some of the best advice. Just sit still, be true to yourself. Don't let other people's inactions force you into something that would make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In a dramatic moment like this.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, not only do your emotions and does one's like emotions and thoughts fly everywhere in every direction when this experience happens, but the internet and Facebook and social media makes the immediacy of it feel adds to a confusion. So people end up making impulsive decisions or saying impulsive things or saying things and that one might not if we didn't have social media, if there was more like hand letter writing or telephone calls, like these things might have been slowed down, some of those things. Maybe not, but I think about that too, that like these Facebook messages, people are like messaging back and forth, like having a conversation with people that they didn't know existed like 15 minutes before. And it can just make this sort of immediacy confusing, I think, and what to do, how to act slow when nothing else is feeling slow.
Right. And I would say too, with all of that also, is if you're in a conversation, through Facebook messaging or texting, get on the phone and have a conversation. Just like everything else, you're going to misunderstand something if someone goes to bed and they stop talking. Your brain starts going down the rabbit holes because you're so vulnerable and you're so afraid of like rejection. Like, that's one of the things that came out of my research, was like the fear of rejection is so high. We feel so vulnerable when we're normally such strong, capable people. We're capable of getting through really tremendous, heinous things. We'll get through this, but there's all these other pieces that don't need to happen if we just get on the phone and have a conversation. Like, set up a time, like, hey, do you have time this weekend for about an hour that we could have a conversation about this? Set it up and have that so your brain can relax, but when you're typing, we can misinterpret a lot of different things,
so
a lot
much.
of attitude. Someone gets on the phone and they give you attitude. Okay, now we know what we're dealing with. But if within the texting, it gets, it's tough. I know it's easy, but you misinterpret things often.
Yeah, I mean, tale as old as time. I mean, it's all of this sort of miscommunication, misunderstandings, and sometimes very deliberate misunderstandings or lies and stuff. But yeah, it's all about communication. Successful or unsuccessful communication. And what does one do with a dissertation once it's done? What do you do with that information? You're doing that guidebook, right?
Well, yeah, that's just my thing. That's on the side kind of thing. Yeah. Well, I guess they want to publish it, so it'll be published, and then I don't know, it'll just go into some, as someone brilliant once said to me, it's like a pebble on a mountain. So whatever, it's done. I don't know if I'll take pieces of it and kind of write some articles for some publications. I think I need to take a nap when I'm done with this. Honestly, I think I'll probably dive back into some research related to what we're doing with this.
Mm-hmm.
and write some things and talk with some people. I definitely will stay in this zone of how can I help educate probably the mental health community. What can I bring to the mental health community to support NPEs? How can I best help NPEs? And the wider circles, the wider environments, the immediate family members, the extended family members. I think there's a whole network of people there that could benefit from that. So I'll probably do more in that zone. I don't know. Does it give me credibility? I mean, we all have credibility if we have a story, right? We all come to it with some kind of a lens. I just feel this was kind of what I was supposed to do. The timing of this happening right in the moment when I had to decide what I was going to do with my dissertation. I'm a school social worker. This is my day job. I have a private practice in the evenings. So I didn't want to do anything with my school social work for a dissertation. I could not land on something. And so it's just interesting to me that this happened the way it did.
Right.
And now the passion is so here. Like I'm so ready to retire the school in a few years and just go full force into this world. I'm really passionate about it at this point. There's just a lot of hurting people and a lot of room for education. It's a new place. And I think that's the most exciting thing is when you're working on a doctorate of any sort, you're supposed to look for something that hasn't been seen before and try and help to fill the gap. Well, I mean, it's a gaping hole right now. So there's a lot of us trying to help, plug it up a little bit and find ways to support. And as a social worker, I can't think of anything kind of more fulfilling than to help in this world with that piece for all of us. Interviewing people has probably been one of the most rewarding. You do this, right? This is what you get to do all the time. You're so good at it. We appreciate you so much. But it is immensely powerful to talk to someone and see their face and see their expressions and see their pain and see their joy and just walk that path with them for a few minutes. It's just a beautiful thing. Love it. Love it. So I don't know what I'm going to really do. I'm going to do something.
Right. Clearly you're hooked.
Something. Yeah, I'm hooked.
The NPE community is so lucky for it. We're just better for it. You're just bringing so much information and energy and focus, and it's so I for one am really grateful. But I know the community at large is excited for all of this to come in. And then also I know that for a lot of people, I think it really meant a lot to be asked to interview with you. I'm suddenly I just remembered that I think that's how we got connected, because you had been allowed to ask people if they wanted to interview with you, and someone else had interviewed with you, and then they contacted me and said, you really got to talk to this woman. So then you and I connected, and then, but I don't qualify technically. So
I know.
It's fine.
I know. So I was so sad. I was so sad.
But that's how we started talking. And I know that for a lot of people, I think it felt really good to feel like they were contributing to something that was going to help to data. I think that also is a really empowering experience for a lot of people that feel like their whole life and has been whipped out from under them, and you gave them, being of service. I talk about this all the time, but being of service can be so healing. And I think that you really offered at least 51 people that, which is a lot. Yeah. That's cool. That's really cool. So yeah. So I will be, I'll be keeping tabs on what's going on with you, your research and your progress. And, and I'll be in touch. Are you going to the retreat?
I am in April.
Great.
Yeah, I'll be there.
So we'll talk. Okay, cool.
We will.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for giving me your morning. I'll be in touch. And yeah, this is just lovely. It was the perfect way to start my Friday.
Yes. Thank you, Eve. Thank you for everything that you're doing for all of us. You are a superhero.
I couldn't do it without you and everybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your work from home snow day.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it. Yes, it was great to see you.
Yeah.
And I'll see you in April.
Your hair looks amazing.
This is the dirty for 2 days look. It just stays that way.
I was like, oh, you're really well lit when you first came on. I was like, oh, she's really.
It's the snow off the window right there.
Oh, it's making a great.
Truly. Oh, good.
Great light. All right. I'll talk to you soon, Gina. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Bye. Gina defended her dissertation not long after our talk, and I am so pleased to announce that she passed. I don't know if it's called passing when it's a dissertation. It was accepted. I don't know. But I'm so thrilled to be obligated to thank Dr. Gina Daniel for her time on my podcast. So we did it, guys. We did another week of exploring people's lives that are changed by DNA test. Thanks for listening. I appreciate all the support that comes in all the ways. If you enjoyed this podcast, and hey, even if you didn't enjoy it, would you go onto Apple Podcasts and leave a review? Apple ratings and stars, very easy to do, and it affects the algorithm quite significantly. So it's how people find us, get help. So it would mean a lot. And I am truly, algorithm notwithstanding, sincerely interested in what you think. So if you don't mind, if you have 1 minute of your time, get over there, write a review, give me some stars, please, and thank you. If you or someone you love is looking for therapy, my private practice called Magpie Life has 2 new therapists who are taking on new clients. So come on over, check it all out at www.evesturgis.la or contact me directly, eve@everythingsrelativepodcast.com. Using teletherapy, we can see people within the entire state of California, and contact us anyway if you're outside of California, and we can probably work something out. But in the meantime, I'll be back next week with a new episode, continuing to explore the world of DNA discoveries. Thanks, everybody. Remember to keep telling your truths. This is Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis. Bye-bye. Don't forget to wash your hands.
Everything's Relative with Eve Sturgis is produced by Kaylin Egan and Eve Sturgis. Eve is a licensed therapist in the state of California, but conversations on this podcast are not therapy sessions. This podcast is edited by Stephanie DeLon-Zick, the logo design is by Ivy McNally, and the music is used with permission by Goodbye the Band.
Oh, hello, you.
What's up, hoes?
I'm Mary Kay McBrayer.
I'm Mary Amelia Byer.
I'm Rachel Estridge.
And we like scary movies.
Let's be more specific. We like analyzing scary movies.
Okay, but let's be a little bit more specific. We like making fun of scary movies.
Let's be even more specific. We have to make fun of scary movies so that we can sleep at night.
We host a horror comedy podcast called Everything Trying to Kill You that rips all your fave horror movies a new one.
And bonus, we'll tell you jokes from the perspectives of
feminist ethnic minorities
and queer women,
which might be something you haven't considered before.
Sure looks like Hollywood hasn't.
So check out Everything Trying to Kill You. New episodes every other Friday on Campfire Media.
Campfire.